Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, has the most recent information on the ICE developments and the riots in LA.
Drinking with my girls, hey, drinking with my boys, hey, phones in the air, now click, selfie, phones in the air, now click, selfie, phones in the air, now click, selfie.
Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Part of why we're happy is knowing that, like, the adults are in charge.
People that are causing the problem are professional agitators, they're insurrectionists.
Do you think that President Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act?
And if they still aren't quelling the violence, then yes, is the short answer, just as it was done in LA back in 1992.
Here's Tom Homan on Fox News.
What we discussed was, for those protesters that cross the line, I've said it many times, you can protest, you get your First Amendment rights. When you cross that line, you put hands on an ICE officer, or you destroy property, or I say that you're impede law enforcement, or you're knowingly harboring, concealing illegal alien, that's a crime. And the Trump administration is not going to tolerate it. You cross that line, we're going to seek prosecution in the Department of Justice. Then the reporter asked me, well, could Governor Newsom or Mayor Bass be arrested? I said, well, no one's above the law. If they cross the line and commit a crime, absolutely they can.
No one's above the law. They're quoting Letitia James. Democrats, remember, this is your quote. No one's above the law. Even a citizen like Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass. Be careful if you incite a riot.
There was no discussion about arresting Newsom. And so, what he's done, he's failed that state. He waited 2 days of that city burning and people getting hurt, officers being assaulted before he made any declaration of an unlawful assembly. He's late to the game. President Trump isn't late to the game. Men and women of ICE are not late to the game. And let's make this clear. I keep hearing this term ICE raids, ICE raids. What happened with how this riot started is that ICE was serving a series of criminal warrants at a business being investigated for money laundering, customs fraud, and serious violations on sending money to criminal cartels that in Colombia and Mexico that fund criminal cartel activities in the United States. It's a part of an overall conspiracy that ICE is investigating.
So just to be clear, they're going to tell you these riots happened in response to ICE raids on Friday. And that's not true. It's these riots happened in response to ICE raids on Friday that were a proper, legal, correct, moral American response to illegal activity, human trafficking, money laundering. If they really don't want the riots, go to the illegals that pulled all the crimes that forced ICE agents to come and make the bust.
We were arresting bad people. We were enforcing laws and following up on a serious criminal investigation on cartel financing. So that's exactly what ICE did. And ICE took a lot of bad people off the street that day. We arrested a sexual predator, arrested gang members, arrested somebody that had an armed robbery conviction. So we made LA safer. The men and women at ICE, the men and women at the Border Patrol made LA safer that day, but you're not hearing any of this. All you hear is a rhetoric about ICE being racist, about ICE being Nazis and terrorists, and Governor Newsom feeds that. Just like Hakeem Jeffrey feeds it, that he's going to unmask ICE agents. And the members of Congress who keep feeding this rhetoric, they're the ones that are causing this riot.
Donald Trump calling out the National Guard unconstitutionally, illegally, without the governor's authorized approval.
I just want to just state for the record that what did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot that went all across the city of Los Angeles after a verdict in the Rodney King case. This is a situation where the LA County Police,
Dana,
it's not good, but they're saying that they have it under control, and the president is sending national troops,
Dana,
federal troops, in a way that
we can look at
hasn't
this
been
and
done
we
in
can
a long
obviously
time.
see that it is not under control. It's not under control. You and I both can see that. It's not under control. And a riot is a riot. They're throwing all types of objects at law enforcement, and the president is absolutely right.
Holy cow, they're throwing bricks at the police.
Because they don't listen to the truth about what the men and women at ICE are doing. We're keeping our promise to American people to make these streets safe again. And that's exactly what we're going to do, and we're not going to stop doing it.
Tom, who gave the stand-down order from the LAPD? When your federal agents were being surrounded, and you know the call, you were a local cop before you were a federal agent. When a cop says officer assist across the radio that they're surrounded, Everyone in the surrounding area is supposed to respond. So who told the LA cops not to respond?
Well, the LA police chief, he works for the mayor of Los Angeles. That's Karen Bass. And they were delayed. They were very delayed in responding to the call for assistance. And they had over 1,000 protesters at the federal building and they breached it several times. Luckily, they were able to push them back. And that put the officers at great risk. It put the detainees that we had in custody at great risk. So again, this is just a false narrative being pushed by the left and being pushed by even members of Congress about the men and women of ICE being Nazis and terrorists.
The demarcations are clear, guys. This is a political protest. This is a political movement. And we never put an X next to a Democrat. Never. This is all just politics playing out in your street between two parties.
We don't agree with the term illegal. We're undocumented. We've been here for thousands of years before you guys showed up, screw up everything. We think we should organize together with the U.S. working class and fight together and create a better system. We're anti-capitalist. We think socialism does work, real socialism.
And you hear it said over and over in this segment. The Republicans got ahead of this problem. The Democrats are late in responding. If you want an adult in charge, you have to have Republicans respond.
And that we're out arresting innocent women and children. Everybody we arrested, everybody we're looking for, they got final order removed. They've had the due process. That's what we keep shouting about. They demand due process. They had the due process. A judge, a federal judge, has ordered them removed. Our job is to execute that order, right? So you got Congress who made the laws that we're following. You have a judge that orders them removed. So we're executing removal orders. ICE is doing the job that American people want them to do. We're making America safe again, one illegal criminal at a time, and that's what we're doing in L.A. Before I got that, let me just mention this. God bless President Trump for sending the National Guard. The National Guard is here to protect property, protect life, protect our officers, and protect civilians. You've seen the video. This city's burning. It's out of control because of the weak leadership of Democrats here in the state.
A crime has he committed? I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. What he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country. That's pretty bad. It's the wrong philosophy. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, many of them prisoners. They're taking up your health care. They're taking up your space in schools. They're taking up your hospital. And in many cases, they're criminals.
And frankly, in the United States Congress. So I salute President Trump to send the National Guard to protect life and property.
We have breaking news now from the Pentagon. CNN can now report that roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the protests in Los Angeles.
And this is a significant escalation from President Trump, who had activated National Guard troops over the weekend without Governor Gavin Newsom's consent. In this new move, active duty military members are being deployed as a show of force against U.S. citizens.
And it appears now that these Marines, according to our sources, they have been mobilized. These 500 Marines, a full Marine battalion based out of 29 Palms, California, which is just outside San Bernardino, about an hour away from Los Angeles. They have been mobilized and they are gearing up to go and help ICE agents as well as other federal officials deal with these protests in Los Angeles. Importantly, they're going to be bolstering as well the National Guard, guardsmen and women who have been activated in Los Angeles by President Trump. But as you said, it is a significant escalation of the president's use of the military as a show of force against these protesters. It's really not clear, the last time Marines were deployed to help essentially with riot control, though it's unclear at this point just what their actual tasking will be. Typically, if they are deployed to these situations, it is expected that they will operate in much the same way that the National Guard does, doing things like perimeter security, maybe some crowd control. But the rules of engagement here, we are told, are still being finalized, and Defense Department lawyers are also looking at the kinds of rules of engagement these Marines will have as they encounter protesters possibly on the streets of Los Angeles. But again, this coming at a very, very tense moment with the governor of California suing the Trump administration over, of course, the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump against his will there in California.
Anti-ICE rioters in L.A. blocking the highway and setting fire to the city in protest of Trump's administration's illegal immigration crackdown.
What is the bar for sending Marines?
What I think it is. I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order.
democracy relief on the table, sir. Secretary,
We got to see what we need. We'll send whatever we need to make sure there's law and order.
Now, California Governor Gavin Newsom wrote in protest to the president and also posted on X saying, quote, "I have formally requested the Trump administration rescind their unlawful deployment of troops in Los Angeles County and return them to my command." I think the answer we can safely say to that is going to be a flat no from President Trump. He, in fact, has indicated he is willing to keep the National Guard here and bolster their ranks for up to 60 days if he feels it is necessary. I can also tell you guys there is another protest plan to gather in Grand Park, just a couple of blocks from where I am right now, at 11 a.m. local time today. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time. So those protesters are not letting up either.
This is the tough thing about protests, guys, is for them to cluster enough people to make a presence, they have to get the word out. So they have to announce where they're going to meet. And our our government, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, are going to be all over that information, looking for who is funding this, who is organizing it. Anytime that they say, look, we're going to be over at this park today at 11 a.m. in LA, we'll have our police forces all over that just to see and make sure and find out what kind of messaging they're doing.
We are going to show you 2 live shots of these planned protests. One screen left, Los Angeles, 11:30 in the morning there. That is now underway. Looks all of this as we see crowds building in Atlanta, 2:30 local time there. You can see megaphones and signs up as we are early in the afternoon.
Since you are refused to leave the premises, you are now subject to arrest. If you do not accompany the arresting officer voluntarily, you are now subject to arrest. If you do not accompany the arresting officer voluntarily to the prisoner transport.
You bitch! You! Yeah, back up. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.
This is the thing with the new cultures today. Nothing is hidden. Nothing. Everything is public. Everything comes out. Same way that, like on the right, we couldn't have a secret meeting. You'd have spooks all over the conversation.
Jonathan, any sense of how many of these protesters are illegals? Do you get the sense that this is good question? This is illegals trying to stay here, or do you think it's just people creating anarchy?
I think you have a complete mixture of all of those things. Frankly, Brian, I think a lot of illegal immigrants would not be showing up to these protests simply because of the danger they would face of arrest. I think what you have are a lot of supporters of those illegal immigrants.
Known as Democrats. Not one Republican is out marching in the streets supporting this thing. And it's not illegals throwing bricks. Those are honky, American, entitled Democrats, mostly whites if you look at their skin color. These are the communist, Marxist, Democrat students at university. They're LA people, so they're people of wealth. They're the ones that are doing most of the rock throwing, most of the mask wearing, most of this stuff. This is a political movement. This is a political, violent, leftist politics. Just remember what they tried to pin on MAGA on January 6th. This is the same thing as Black Lives Matter. Who is more violent? I don't remember seeing any burned cars on January 6th. You see tons of them in this event. So this is a political movement. It's important. The illegal immigrants are afraid to come out and protest this way. They don't want to get deported with a crime on them. So overall, it's
a lot of
illegals.
Immigration activists. And then, as the LAPD chief, Jim McDonnell himself said, you have a lot of people who have very little to do with the cause of immigration, but are here simply because this is, in the words of the LAPD chief, what they do. They turn up for these protests and riots. They turned up for the George Floyd protests and riots. They've turned up for the anti-Wall Street protests and riots. And according
this is the same thing with Occupy Wall Street. This is the dial-a riot people. They show up because they want public violence, intimidation. They should be labeled as a terrorist group. It's funded by George Soros. It's also funded by the Democrat Party and your tax dollars going to NGOs, non-government organizations. We did that in the last video. $34 million went to those. So this is funded anarchy in our own country. And many of these even have no position on illegals. Now, Marxism needs to divide the people to be able to conquer. They have to get us involved in some kind of a social civil war. And that's always their agenda. They can't do it through votes. They can't do it through patriots. They can't do it enough. So this is all just messaging, guys. This is a political movement. Bottom line.
According to the police chief, they see a lot of the same faces turning up, organizing here. And according to the police chief, they are the ones engaging in most of the violence over the last few days, Brian.
Well, yeah, because there was never any consequences. Thanks, Jonathan.
The only consequence they had was Kamala Harris paying for their bail with Black Lives Matter, getting them out, making sure they weren't prosecuted. They've always turned a blind eye to the left. And then when the right has its protest on January 6th, oh man, it is instant arrests, some of them life sentences, no due process, no visiting them in prison for years.
In 2020, they never got arrested. There was no criminal prosecution.
They were applauded.
Exactly. So you got the same people showing up to every movement with the keffiyehs, yet again, the same people that market in the middle of the street. You got the COVID masks that are on as well. And they say they're afraid of the police, remember, but they're throwing bricks at them. They're setting stuff on fire. This doesn't look like people that are afraid of the police. These are people that feel empowered. This is why the president has to crack down and deal with it. Gavin Newsom has had years to deal with these people, and they've been free to do whatever they want. And now the hammer is being dropped.
Well, it's the Democrats that have demonized ICE agents, called them fascists. And so the individuals hear that, they go out and protest. It doesn't make sense. You would think that the governor would want federal agents or troops, National Guard, to be sent in to help his police officers, because the LA police chief said, we're overwhelmed. They're using cinder blocks and hammers. They're throwing these at our cars and at our police officers. That we've even had liquid, who knows what, thrown at our officers. They shut down the 101 freeway. You can't do that.
Meanwhile, it's become mini Mexico. That's why the flags, these people are proud of it. They don't understand that it's hurting their cause, but they're not thinking about that.
And now Gavin Newsom wants to sue Donald Trump.
Right.
That's supposed to come down today.
This is an incredible political moment. This is going to play right into Trump's hands and the Republican Party. Any election going forward, the Democrats are going to get smeared for life. Their only hope of regaining power is through a radical uprising like this. This is an act of desperation. They're desperate. It's not going to work because America, we're too much of a civilization of rule of law. So, and I think you're going to see a mass influx to the Republican Party by Californians. If this is what they have to vote for, most normies, the majority of people, even Democrats, are going to switch over. They're going, this isn't what I'm signing up for. You get your car burned down, you get your school closed down, your son-in-law is a police officer, your home is no longer safe and your property values drop. This is going to be a disaster for the Democrats. And that makes me really happy.
And he's trying to stop the whole presence of the National Guard.
So violent anti-ICE protests raging across L.A., burning U.S. flags, setting cars on fire, and throwing rocks at the police to protest the arrest of illegal migrants, including child abuse and murder suspects. But California Democrats like Kamala Harris, Mayor Karen Bass, and Governor Newsom are blaming the Trump administration for the chaos. Border Czar Tom Homan joins us now. So, Tom, you've been leading these operations. And so instead of criticizing the people that are attacking our agents, you got Gavin Newsom, who has called for you to arrest him, and you got Maxine Waters, who is going after the National Guard. Watch this.
He's a tough guy. Why doesn't he do that? He knows where to find me. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy, you know? I don't give a damn, but I care about my community. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me.
That's a threat to Tom Homan. He's going, arrest me. And Homan's going to go, yeah, I'll arrest you.
What are you going to do? You going to shoot some kid? He's afraid of you and run? You going to shoot an elected official? If you shoot me, you better shoot straight. I don't know why you're in my city. You did. The governor was not contacted.
Well, that's Tom Homan with the truth coming out. I just wanted to hear his point of view first. I want to hear from the guy, the boss, and what his agenda is. He's very clear on what the MAGA response is: law and order, protect civilians and safety. And the left side, the violent side, how people in LA can vote for this, they have to change. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of news. I'm Doug in Exile.